All right. Hello. I'm going to set this down.
live.
We are here for what is this thing that I host? The Shelf This Book Club discussion for Looking for Jane by Heather Marshall, which was our pick for January, even though it's February now. We pushed it off for other reading activities. And this month, Elsa below me picked the book so graciously, and I'm so glad that you're here, Elsa. Elsa doesn't have a YouTube channel, but she hangs around, and so I'm happy. I'm happy you said yes to picking a book, and I'm also so very happy that you were brave today and decided to join us on video to discuss.
Thanks. It's an honor to be here.
Yay! And then we're also joined by Lizzie. Nope, Lizzie.
Yes.
From Lizzie's Literary Life. And Martine. From Just Martine. Frequent flyers of the book club. Is this true? Did I pick the next people? I have the next 3, but I think I also started looking at like the next 3 people. I like to be on top of things. But yeah.
I have my next pick already picked out, so when it's my turn.
What? Didn't I message you like a while ago and we're like, hey, like not very soon, but by the end of the year you'll come back? Like I think you're in like the November, December, January of next year group. Or like the end of this year group. So glad to know you already picked something.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about this book. I'm mad I don't own it. I would love to hold it up, but I don't have it. I got it. I did get it through Everand, but I read it with my eyeballs.
Okay.
How did everyone else read it?
I listened to it.
Ooh, you do have it. So Lizzie's the only one who
I had to buy it.
Yeah.
I missed my library hold. So I had to go ahead and purchase it.
I will say I got Everand 4 Squash That Series and then didn't read anything on it and then was able to get this, but I think they double charged me. When I looked at how much money I was charged for a month subscription of Everand, it was like $20. That's not normal, is it?
That's too much.
Yeah,
no,
I was
that's
like,
not normal.
Right, but
I think it's like $11.99.
11 something? Okay, yeah. Well, will I do anything about that? Probably not.
But I liked the audiobook. I thought the narration was really good. I don't know who narrated it, but I thought it was good.
I would have been confused out of my mind.
Yeah, I don't think I would have been able to follow the timelines on audio. Because usually like that, because each chapter of this starts with like the person's name and the year. My mind would have glossed over that. So like seeing it with my eyes. I think the
which part I was in. Like when I went to go chat, I never knew which part I was in. But other than that, I think I followed.
Okay. I want to know what everyone rated it, even though I do kind of know. But I want to know. I want to know. Martine, would you like to go first?
This is my rating. 5 stars.
5 stars?
5 stars. I gave it 3.5. 3.5.
Intriguing.
Yes. I'll leave it at that for right now.
Do you want me to say?
I gave it a 4 for now.
4 for now? Okay.
Holding up your hands.
Right. Lizzie even did with her hands for a 0.5. What did I give it? I was a little hesitant. I think when I finished on Bookly, I marked 4.5. But then I went and did my compile rating, and I did give it 5. So exciting. That has not happened much for me in the book club. I don't think this is my first now. Honestly, like more recently in book club, I've given much better ratings, which is exciting, but a full 5 stars. That's crazy.
Wow.
That's very good.
So I'm excited.
Yeah.
I did want to mention too, I think that this discussion is interesting with the group we have here, because I think we're all in different aspects of motherhood, wanting to be parents and or not wanting to be parents, which is this one. Which is a good, I think, array of people to have to discuss a book like this.
I did say right away it was giving me baby fever. Like,
Yeah, and I was like,
all
actually, it's giving trauma.
especially like Angela and Tina's storyline of them like really, really wanting to be
One.
pregnant and knowing that like that's the situation that I'm gonna be in
One. Yeah.
who knows how long. Like,
Yeah.
going through that kind of process, like it just was like it was feeling close to me and making me want it.
Understandably, there were more traumatic perspectives that were feeling close to me. So it's like the same. Glad you related to maybe a happier perspective. Where do I like to start? I'm so unorganized with these. Mostly I usually like to ask if anyone else had this book like on their radar before Elsa chose it for us. Like, was this on anyone's TBR?
No, I had not heard of
do
it.
think,
But it did win a Goodreads choice, or
that's what I was
nominated
just
for a
gonna say.
Goodreads choice, right?
Elsa was ahead of the game because I had not heard of it when you mentioned it to pick for book club, but then it was nominated for Goodreads choice, which made me really excited for it. So I think when I saw it for Goodreads choice, it may have registered, but like before that, I didn't know anything about it. So good pick. And I don't read a lot of.
I must have heard about it on BookTube.
You must have heard about it on BookTube? Yeah.
I must have.
I don't know.
Marked it, want to read.
I mean, it's now I'd be curious to have looked at this before Goodreads choice, because now it has like almost 35,000 ratings, but I'd be curious before Goodreads choice what that looked like. That I'm sure Goodreads choice elevated that. Fun. I don't read that much historical fiction.
I'm sure.
I think, also with a book like this, I think it falls into a genre. Like if you have read a lot of like feminist historical, that it might not have hit as hard, but because I don't read that much of that, it felt new, good.
Yeah.
Like I feel like there was a point in time
I
where
will say I really
go ahead.
I'm trying to talk.
Yeah.
I will say that I really liked it for the majority of the way through. It just kind of lost me at the end with the twist. Like I just didn't think that the twist was necessarily, and it was just like
that.
And that's why it probably would have gotten a 4 or a 4.5 if it didn't have the twist.
Okay.
Like, because that's where it was heading, and then the twist happened, and I was like,
to me, that dropped the believability a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's
it did, but it made me really want to finish the book last night.
That's true, to figure out what's going on. It already had so many like coincidences and like this person's related to this, and that like doesn't bother me because that's like part of the genre, I think. But
it gave me the vibe of the coincidences of like them all running into each other all the time, like years on. To me, I was kind of just feeling like, oh, this has to be like a fairly small community, like a fairly small is kind of, I guess, what.
Except they're in Toronto, right? Is that true?
I don't know what actual city it's in.
Let me look it up.
Right, so like if that's the case, then the believability of them all running into each other all the time is a little unrealistic, but in my mind, I was picturing like...
I mean, but not really if they're involved in the same like networks. And it's involving a very specific action, which like not everybody in Toronto will be involved in.
Right. True.
Yeah.
Very
I do think it was really interesting to have this perspective of it set in Canada at this particular time, because it made me think about my mother growing up in Canada. And like my mom was in like, she wasn't in Toronto, but she was in this region around the time like the like older parts of this book take place, and I guess I haven't asked her yet, like
Is
whether
this
she knows anything about it. But I would be interested to know, and it did make me think about her a lot, and what it was like to be a woman growing up in that place and time.
what, if you're willing to share, like what year was your mom born?
Oh God.
Because I know that your parents are slightly older than mine.
Yeah, let me double check because I just had to ask my dad the other day what year he was born.
Oh.
So, and I know, it would be 58.
Okay. Yeah, so I think it could be interesting to ask, like, hey, did you know anybody like around
Right.
that time? Or right. Yeah.
Mhm.
It is, I mean, it stares you in the face that like this is an accurate, like this happened, and
Yeah, I also think it's just really chilling for me because I've grown up in a world that was like largely post Roe v. Wade in the United States. And like, so that's like the reality I've lived with. And to think it was not long ago where that was not the reality.
no, and then here we
Mhm.
are.
Yeah, and then here we are, and
Welcome
things
to-
are
and then
going
here we
great
are.
for sure,
Welcome
definitely.
to yeah.
Yeah, it was like reading the part where it was legalized in Canada and like that their celebration. It was like it was kind of bittersweet, right? Because it's like this is obviously a huge milestone, but we know from our perspective now here in the United States that that's not the end, that like things
Uh-huh.
can still go backwards.
Oh yeah.
And so that was like a little
Did you all
to
read the author's
think
note at the end?
Heck yes, I did.
Okay, because this was written before Roe v. Wade was overturned. But then in that, she kind of talked about like what was happening. And so I do think it's interesting that this is a Canadian author because in Canada,
Mhm.
their stuff still stands. But here, so her acknowledging that and talking about it was good, in my opinion. What else do I have to say? Do I want to share the scene that was the most traumatic for me? It was
Really no.
really, I know, but it was really, really hard for me to read the scene where Evelyn, original Evelyn,
Uh-huh.
like had to say goodbye to her baby. That was
Mhm.
terrible. I hated it. I mean, like I loved it as the scope of like what the point it was trying to make, but after reading that, I was like, I don't know if I can emotionally handle this. Like the thought of having to say goodbye to your child. I feel like it's like something you can't explain to someone who's not a mom. Like the instant, like
Mhm.
that's mine. It belongs to me. It belongs to my body. Like you were attached to me just so soon ago. Like it's like I really was like, I probably would have killed somebody.
Well, and Maggie did.
Right. I
Yeah.
Yeah, thinking about like adoption and reuniting with birth parents, I have like a ton of, not a ton, I have several family members who are adopted, and like my dad has 3 adopted siblings, and one of his sisters, as an adult, found her birth mother, and they had a really positive relationship in, you know, 45 years later after
Right.
after that, and the mother had never had any other kids, and I think that was really like positive for her as well to it was obviously she gave the baby up by choice, but
Right.
it was still like I think a positive experience for them to reconnect, so that like was an interesting
Yeah.
perspective too.
I think it would be hard to learn like why like your adoptive parent like chose or decided that they weren't ready or able
Mhm.
to keep you. I don't know anyone. I know people who are adopted, but not that I'm super close to. So like I don't have
Mhm.
very direct.
Yeah, and then I also have a cousin who grew up knowing her birth mother, like
Like the whole
they
time. Like full open
the whole
adoption.
time.
Oh.
And her birth mother is in her life, and it was like a unique circumstance. But they like that also has been a positive thing. So it's
Yeah.
But like on the other side of this, in this book, when characters didn't know that they were adopted at all,
Yeah.
yeah.
and then we had to discover that as adults, and then learn what their mother went through.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
that's really hard.
yeah, I guess what did you guys think about the plot line of like Nancy finding out on her own via snooping and then her mom like never telling her? I thought we were gonna get a confrontation about it.
I wish she had said something.
Yeah. I thought like even like a clearly from the beginning we know that this letter exists that Angela found. But yeah, which leads to knowing that she probably was never told. But once Nancy found out, I thought something would be said or more hints. When she got the booties for her baby shower, I was like,
that
oh
was
my
crazy.
God. Right?
And I
Because
wonder,
just the fact, like you're looking her in the face and you know. Like Nancy knew what these booties actually were. Crazy.
Yeah. I wonder if like in that moment, the mom, I can't remember the mom's name, Frances maybe. I wonder if the mom like had planned to give them to her as like a like an emotional thing, or I kind of was thinking like, because it kind of seemed very spur of the moment of like, I know that she and that the aunt had that kind of rivalry, and then the aunt gives Nancy the crocheted blanket. I wonder if the mom was like, well, I need to come up with something emotional now
I didn't
too.
get that
I don't
vibe.
know.
I almost wondered if Frances gave him to her thinking maybe she would get the courage to tell her and then kind of backed out of that. Like decided she couldn't.
I mean, in the letter that what's her name finds the very beginning of the story.
Angela.
Thank you. It's been over a month. When she finds the beginning of the story, it's very clear to me that Frances really regrets the fact that she never told Nancy. And I think that's just a good example of how like secrets in general hurt like both people involved. Like the keeping of it is painful, and the discovering it when you were never told about it is painful too. And that kind of like sadly ruined their mother-daughter relationship for like the rest of Frances's life. And there was
unknowingly to both of them, right?
Peace there, right?
And the dad too. He could have said something.
True. We did only get like how she felt about her mom not telling her, but she really never said anything about.
I think
that's something about asking her dad.
I don't know. I think
She
there
said
was like
something about him dropping little hints.
Yeah.
I think for her it was largely about the fact that like the booties that she found in the letter were in her mother's belongings.
Yeah.
And like her mother was physically holding on to something and didn't ever tell her about it.
Did we ever learn like did Frances ever learn that, well, I guess because it was like a big news article, that the like where you got your child, you would think when the families who purchased the babies learned how the mothers were treated when St. Agnes got closed down, that like I was almost hoping we would get more stories of not even it necessarily being Frances, but even other adoptive parents of like how that felt to learn that like there's probably like somebody who wanted this baby. Like that's almost a scary thought too. Like somebody could be looking for my baby because they didn't willingly give.
Right. And part of me wonders if she was silent because of the fear that if she felt any type of way and tried to like find the mother would try and take away the child from her.
Right.
And I mean, like motherhood is very valid regardless of how you come about being a mother. And so even though it turns out that Frances adopted this child in this, we know, awful way, that doesn't mean she didn't love her child like a mother. And in the very same way that it hurts to hear Evelyn's story of the baby being taken away. Imagine you've raised this child for however many years and somebody comes in and tries to take them away. That's devastating in its own way. They're not the same
Yeah.
things, but they're both very painful.
We didn't get any examples of like that St. Agnes, the families that they were selling the babies to. We got no examples that those families were not well taking care of the babies they got.
Right.
Mhm.
Also, speaking of, there's a thriller that I've read and I recommend all the time, but nobody else reads it, that is about basically like babies getting swapped. Like
What
when
is
they're
it?
5, they find out that they're not with the right family and they have to decide if they're going to switch back or keep the baby they've been raising. I can't even think of what one it is. To be determined. I'll put it in the chat later if I remember what that book is called.
Mhm.
Listen, I look so uncannily like my mother that it's never been a doubt for me.
Both of my kids look so much like Chris that they're clearly ours. They came out of me and they look so much like him that there's no question.
Mhm.
I mean, what
They
other...
say that peaks around 2 years old, though. So maybe they'll look more like you as time goes on.
Potentially. Mabel being blonde, I feel like, makes her look more like me sometimes. Mabel gaining her attitude.
Wait, are you blonde?
I was blonde as a baby.
Okay.
So like she looks like my baby pictures, I think.
I have 2 kids, and they look like a blend of both of us.
Me and my sister, this is very sidebar, but we're talking about it. I look just like my mom and my sister looks just like my dad. And our parents are very differently complected. So it's like my sister and I do not look the same skin color.
Mhm. Me and my siblings look a lot alike. I don't know, like I feel like we're all a blend of both parents, but we look so much alike. Like
Yeah.
I remember like walking around my hometown, I would just get like people who I didn't even know go, "Hi, you're David's sister," because they
right.
just we just look
Could
alike.
tell.
I also look
yeah.
like my siblings,
Huh,
but
I wonder why.
the weird thing is that when we were younger, people did think we were triplets because even though my brother's 4 years older, like we still look very related.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously I look like my sister.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, Elsa, I don't know if you know or if anyone is watching this later, Martine is a twin.
Yes, an identical twin. We look.
Yeah, fun. I'm trying to think of the other timelines.
Speaking of my sister, I need my sister to read this book because I think she'd love it so much because her 2 fields that she is considering going into are either women's health, so OB-GYN, or pediatrics. And like this deals with both of that, and it would obviously be a really sad book for her, but especially with the idea of like my mom growing up in Canada around this time, like I think my sister would really love this book. I hesitate. I've gone back and forth with myself about whether or not I should recommend this book to my mother because recommending it to a mother at all, I think, is really hard in this case.
Yeah.
I definitely think there are some things, obviously, I knew the parts that were really sad, but it didn't affect me viscerally at sometimes in the same way that it affected like Bailey.
Right. I think this was right book, right time, because I do think if I would have read this 4 years ago, like some things would not have hit the same.
Yeah. And
Just,
yet
like,
we
different
both gave it 5 stars.
Yeah. Exactly.
Lizzie, you were saying earlier, like, you weren't sure you like appreciated the twist, but I for sure did. I love the twist. I ate it up from beginning to end. I literally was sitting on my couch back home, gasping out loud, having the best time. It is rare, I feel like, for a book to surprise me that much. And I also was just, it was a twist I was so grateful for, because then they got to meet as
Yeah.
mother and daughter, and it would have just been just sad, no happy.
Yeah.
If, Maggie
Um,
really
I will admit that I did send Martine the screenshot of the quote that says, my name was Maggie then, and my baby's name was Jane. And I texted that to Martine and said, "The fuck you mean?" And then she just laughed, and I was like, "What do you mean?"
And I
And then
didn't
obviously
respond because I
kept
was like
reading.
thinking to myself, read the next chapter.
Right, like obviously then I kept reading. Like,
Um,
but it was like when she said that, such like a
and I did love the way that like looking for Jane had so many different meanings in the book. Like, yes, it meant the network, but
Yeah.
it also meant looking for Jane, the
like that's
daughter.
yeah.
And like, and I also thought it was so beautiful for this mother and this daughter to have worked together so closely on this like women's rights issue. And like
I
even
think yeah. Like the
some of the
moment
things,
where it said like her name is Nancy Mitchell, and then Evelyn, new Evelyn, is like Nancy Mitchell. Like I know her is
yeah.
also just like such a big like you know her, because then she says that their time working together she can now think of as like time spent with her daughter, even though it was unknowingly. I would be like, nothing is ever said about like if they look similar, but I would have loved a little like, oh yeah, it does make sense because their eyes are the same color, or just something, like
Yeah, I don't know. The problem is that all human beings share 99% of the same DNA.
right,
So
like
there's
you
one
can convince me I
percent-
look like almost anybody.
Exactly. And that's like my brother will make comments like, "Oh, that person looks like this person," because he sees it, and I look at them and I'm like, they look nothing
No,
like. You could convince anybody that they look in some way like somebody else, and so I'm actually glad that they didn't include that, because I would be like,
whatever, right.
but yeah, and I also thought it was really interesting how the secret of the Jane Network like impacted Nancy and like her relationships with other people.
I knew something was going to go bad with Nancy and Michael.
I
Like,
know. I was almost gonna say I could have done without them like almost rekindling in the end. Like I was just like,
yeah.
okay.
I was so focused on the other stuff by then. Again, it glossed me by. The same thing with Evelyn's baby, glossing me right by.
The other baby, yeah.
Yes.
I think if it wasn't such a shock to me when she said that your baby died, I would have forgot about it. Or if I wouldn't have read this so quickly. Like if I would have read this over 2 weeks, more things you forget about as you move on through the story. But because it was so fresh, I was still thinking like, so did the baby die or not? Which I think in the author's note also is led to believe that the baby did not die, but that they did tell mothers at the time. Like a lot of mothers were told that their babies died even when they didn't. Like I think that's also the point.
I think the really tragic part about it is that Agatha did that because she thought it would help with the pain
Move on. Yeah.
that Evelyn was feeling, but it just made everything worse.
Right. And the conversation you guys had about like then it means that she did what she did to herself off of false knowledge.
Based on false.
Yeah.
Right. And like and so in like I was saying in the chat, in a way I think it's more impactful that we don't actually like know for sure what happens to the baby, because I don't think that's the point of that plot line.
Yeah.
And so I didn't get hung up on what happened to the baby. I got hung up on the fact that, oh my gosh, you did this, but your baby is alive. And like this system told you this thing, and that's like the system was already messed up, and then they did this. And that part of the system messing up was even more unfortunate because it was born out of goodwill, which the rest of the system was not.
Yeah.
But even when people in that system were trying to be helpful, they just hurt people.
Yeah.
I wish Agatha had some more closure, because I feel like she was trying to do her best, and I wish it had shown her giving reports about the abuses that she witnessed.
I do
I
think
guess
she was on the
just
naive
young
side.
and caught up in the system.
Like she was on the
Mhm.
naive side of the operation. I also though wondered when, I don't remember which of the, if it was Maggie or Evelyn who, I think it was Evelyn, who told her that they were selling the babies.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm curious because I didn't get the instinct that, like, did we believe that Agatha didn't know that before?
Yes, I believe that
Because
she
I
did. know
was
that.
kind of like, is she
Yeah.
just like kind of playing dumb,
No.
or like, are we trusting her as a naive participant?
Here's my thing is I've seen so many times in my life people be caught in doing work for bad and harmful system and they genuinely don't realize
Yeah,
that the system is harmful.
right.
And sometimes when you tell those people the system is harmful, it ruins their life in the same way that it ruined Agatha's.
Yeah. I mean, clearly, like in her dying days, she was making these like confession type,
Yeah.
outburst type situations.
And that reminds me actually of the conversation I was just having today about the concept of the banality of evil, which is this concept about the Holocaust, but basically the idea that somebody might not be inherently evil, but just clueless.
Or yeah,
And they do evil things because they are clueless.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was Agatha in this case. Because I think if they only showed us characters who knew what they were doing, like the people in charge did, it would be a very different story than when they show us there were people who purposefully did wrong and people who thought they were doing the right thing.
right. I mean, because it is right. Like they're essentially taught like we're doing this for the good, like we're placing these babies in good homes and we're giving these young girls a chance to hide here and then leave and start over, like that kind of thing. And some people just don't connect the dots. That's probably not the best way to say that, but also we all know I love an old man character. Like to my bones, anytime there's a grumpy old man, and was his name Chester?
Yeah.
Obsessed. Like him just being her first, like patient, and then like getting people to go see her, and then in his dying days when she goes to see him, and he's like, "I know what you're doing out of there. Like I see the girls." Like I'm just like, my sweet old man.
I also loved, was Tom his name?
The husband.
Yeah.
The husband.
Dr. Sweeney's husband.
That was a good plot line.
I did love that.
Yeah.
I do love a good, guess we'll just get married.
And I think it also like highlighted how, we're putting the emphasis on this bad thing that was happening at the
Right,
time.
but
That's not the only bad thing.
because in the end they mentioned that the new Evelyn and Tom do end up getting divorced because gay marriage also becomes legal and Tom gets married.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, so it is like,
I think also kind of on that vein, I really appreciated that our like modern day couple, Tina and Angela, was a lesbian couple or a sapphic couple. I think that like makes because it could have easily been a straight couple going through a fertility journey as well. But I think like that the addition of that was really special. Like obviously to me for my own personal reasons, but also like I think that it really emphasizes the women and their choice in their bodies and what they want to do, because it's like Tina like does not want to carry a child, but Angela wants to so bad, and I just think that was really like a good addition.
They also included characters who had every different type of reason for getting the procedure done that they did, which I really appreciated, because I think it's really sometimes tempting when people write stories about like a certain topic like this. They just want to talk about one type of person and one type of instance.
well, because at St. Agnes's, don't they often call the young girls whores? And then we get the example of like, well, this part, I forget which one of them was it. Evelyn,
was engaged,
was pregnant due to
Oh, one
No,
of
it
them
was-
was engaged.
That was
the other one
original
engaged.
Maggie.
Yeah.
It was original Maggie
Yeah.
was pregnant due to an abusive, and then that's why her family still doesn't talk to her, is because they're still saying, no, our friend didn't do this to you.
Yeah. And
Which
so
is-
like I really
So it's
I
like
think that made the story for me that there were so many different types of stories
Right.
told in one, and they worked well together.
And the fact that, because original Evelyn got pregnant because she was engaged and then he died, which was also just like,
Mhm.
and then you're going to take
Yeah.
that baby from her? You're going to take it. It hurts so bad.
Yeah.
There was
And
something I
this is
wanted.
where I thought that one of the characters was going to be faced with a late term termination.
When I
because that
read that
would've
you
just
had that
rounded
prediction, I was like, oh no, because then I was like, I think she's right. But yeah, we never
Not
did.
this
We
time.
never made it to. Yeah, we did. To Angela having her baby.
I don't think
The-
so.
Okay, the author wrote somewhere that the book was too long. She had to cut some things, but Angela ends up having twins. That's what I.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
because
the
they
twins
mentioned that
were
there
in
was a shadow.
They go to the ultrasound and it's confirmed that they're having twins, but then we don't actually see
Yeah, we
the
don't get to
babies
see
being
the
born.
babies. Okay,
But like the author says, it implies that like,
successful.
they-
Successful. Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. There was something else I wanted to say. Oh, when the like the dangers of them doing the illegal abortions, like the
Mhm.
scenes where the cops come to the clinic when Nancy is getting her procedure done, and then
Oh,
the
that was
scene,
scary.
yeah, and then the scene, which they played it off well, like that scene was kind of like, but then the scene where the cop comes undercover and they
Mhm.
get busted at the
Mhm.
apartment was scary with the like
That was
gun and
scary.
that. But then the character who comes at the end, I can't remember these characters' names because they're not huge overarching characters, but the lady who
Mhm.
comes towards the end and is like, I have to tell you, like, I'm a cop, but that's not why I'm here. Like, I think
Mhm.
all of those were also very interesting circumstances, like the circumstance, because we were talking about the different reasons why people needed the procedures done, that was like an older, well-established woman who still was just like, I don't want a child.
Mhm.
And like like all of these reasons are valid reasons.
Yeah, I have two thoughts. The first is them eating the patient list in the back
Yes.
of the car.
Uh-huh.
Didn't one of them like gag and basically like spit it
Had me.
back out and have to do it again?
Yeah. But that had me because I was like, these women, and then didn't she say in the author's note that that was based on like somebody had actually done that? I don't know.
I don't
I
remember.
feel like I remember that. But then the second thing I was going to say is I saw this comment on Goodreads. Somebody asked a question. They were like, is this a pro-abortion book? And somebody was like, no, it is a
Oh.
pro-choice book.
Oh, yeah. Right.
And I was like,
Mhm.
hell yeah.
Right. Yeah, correct. I mean, the topic about all books like this that I don't like to have to bring it up, but I like to just mention also that I always feel when reading something like this that the only people who really do end up picking it up and reading it are people who already agree.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, like a lot of this is not, I'm sure the author's gotten like hate because people know the concept of the book, but like readership is not, nobody's handing this book to somebody and changing their mind or trying to change their mind.
Mhm.
Which is unfortunate. So it's written for people essentially who already agree. Like I always just get that feeling when I read stuff like this.
Mhm.
Because is this something that I would pick up and like
Who
not
knows?
to say
Maybe
that,
there'll
like,
be like
go ahead, Elsa.
I'm sorry, my internet keeps like freezing everybody, and I don't know if I'm interrupting.
No, good.
There may be someone young who hasn't really decided how they feel, and
Mhm.
they may be swayed one way or the other. well,
Mhm.
That's true.
towards choice by reading this.
That is true. I was gonna give the example that, like, not to say that, like, somebody's father is, you know, pro-life or anti-choice. I don't think this is something that you would hand to them and be like, you should read this. These examples are going to change your mind.
Mhm.
Because I think especially in this, they do specifically talk about the difference between it needing to be done earlier and later in a pregnancy. Like, there are a few mentions of, like, how far along the girls are.
Mhm.
I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, it goes back to something I was talking about in my social psych class the other day, where, like, when you challenge people's beliefs, that challenges their self-concept, and so they react in a way as if you challenging their belief is a threat to them.
Yeah.
And so defensive people are almost never going to change their minds.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think that if somebody picked this up and was open to at least reading it, that it could be interesting to see what happened, because I think it is a very empathetic story.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it
Yeah.
gives lots of viewpoints, and I think it is a story led by love and a hope for change. But never, if you just shoved this book at somebody, would it ever change their mind.
No.
Because they just throw it away.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Would be
Yeah,
defensive.
no, thank you.
They wouldn't read it.
I guess I didn't look
It
that
was
much.
interesting. Go ahead, Bailey.
I didn't look that much into the author in terms of, like, I don't know where. Obviously, she's like mentions being feminist and that this, like, topic is important to her, but I don't know, like, much about her education or anything like that.
I was going to say it was interesting reading this as someone who grew up in a church that was very anti-choice and, like, around a lot of people that were very anti-choice, and like, just thinking about specific people that I know that have these, or knew. I'm not in contact with any of them anymore, but like, specific examples of, like, I feel like they're just not thinking through what this actually means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just think even, like, my thoughts around it, because now that I am a mother, I feel even more strongly that people should be able to decide that they don't want to be. Because what the fuck, it's so hard. Like, seriously though, like, I think that it's important. I don't think any child should have to be raised by somebody who doesn't want to either.
Right. And then
every
then a lot
child
of
a willing
people,
child and every mother a willing mother is what they keep
Yeah.
saying.
then, like, everybody then goes to the argument, well, they don't have to keep the child and blah blah blah, and it was their choice to get pregnant. And I think this story does a really good job of showing it's not their choice in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Like, even if
And also
somebody-
that the trauma of giving a child up for adoption, even if it is your choice to do that, like, that there were reasons why you would not want to go through with a pregnancy, even if you plan to give up the child.
I think
Because people
there's a
often
lot
say,
of-
like, oh, like, we don't need to do this because you could just adopt, like, give the child up for adoption, but that's not.
Right. And, like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they talk about choices, they forget, Bailey, you didn't see, but I put that in quotation marks, choices, is the thing that they don't forget is the feelings associated with those choices. Like, sometimes people are like, oh, you could just do this and that, but, like, what emotional impact is that going to have on you for the rest of your life, depending on the choices you make in that moment?
Right.
And so they focus more on the act and how they feel about it than how the person experiencing it feels about it. And that's the problem, right? Is it's not your body, it's not your feelings, right? It's theirs.
Yeah.
And I thought this just did a really good job of showing all the different feelings that somebody could feel.
Yeah. I mean, as we talk about this, I feel more solidified in my 5 star, because I do think that she did a very good job giving many examples.
Yeah, I do
Mhm.
find it interesting that you originally gave it 4.5, then you put it in Copilot, went up because the
Mhm.
second I finished it, I was like 5 stars, done for sure. And even now, like even when I had a fundamental mismemory of what happened, it's still like 5 stars.
I mean, this is definitely something I would recommend to people who I think enjoy this type of thing.
Mhm.
Like, I know that the in-person book club I go to, the gal who hosts those loves historical fiction and loves feminist historical fiction. Like, I know she would love this.
Mhm.
Although I feel like it's something, just because of the area I live in, that like she could never choose for us to read for book
Mhm.
club. I think she specifically would really love this, and like I know other people in my personal life who I think would really love this. So it's a very good book for the right person.
Mhm.
And Elsa, I'm so
I'm
glad
glad
that you
y'all
chose
were
it, because I know
able to.
I think you messaged me after the fact and were like, I hope this is like okay to choose, and I was like, no, I think it's great. Because of
Yeah.
the theme.
I wasn't positive, but I thought this might be a good platform for it.
Well, and I also
My
think
in-person book
Mhm.
is not the right
Right.
spot for it.
right. I think too, like if anyone comes across this after the fact, like if as long as comments are respectful, I'll leave them there. But if anything is out of touch, I'll just delete it. Does anybody have any other thoughts? I feel like we covered most of the like plot lines that this
Yeah,
went over. I feel like we thoroughly discussed it.
we did.
Yay. As fitting, somebody downstairs is yelling for their mommy. Never heard of her. Yeah, what are we doing? And next in Shelf This. February is technically a month off, even though you're seeing us here right now in February. So March, we're back at it, and Nessa, is that right? Nessa picked Not So Perfect Strangers by Ellis Stratton. L.S. It sounded like I said Ellis. Initials L.S. Stratton. And it's a thriller, and I think it's been a little bit since we've done a thriller for the book club. Like a true, also, like not mystery, like it's, I believe, a thriller, which kind of, I think, fits with this book, because I believe that book is about like two women running from men. I think
Mm.
the synopsis of that book is like this lady takes her like teenage son and is escaping an abusive relationship, and then for some reason she like decides not to and turns around, and as she's driving this car back, a woman like comes up to her car, like knocking on her window, and is like actively running from a man. And so she lets the woman into her vehicle, and then the story is about. That's what the synopsis is.
We'll have to read it and find out.
Yeah, those details could be
Yeah.
a little misinformed, but I'm excited for that. It's a tone shift for sure. So we'll be back in March for that, which March is Nessa's birthday month and also my birthday month. So we should be able to celebrate together.
Nice.
And yeah, that's what's up. Okay, thank you guys for joining me for the live show, and we'll get back at it. If I can think of that thriller I was thinking of, I'll post it in the Discord too. Bye.
Bye.